Hello and welcome. We're often taught that a core part of being a good person is to help anyone and everyone in need. But what if that's not the whole story? Today, we're diving into a really challenging theological take that says the Bible actually commands us not to help certain kinds of people. It's a pretty startling idea, so let's get right into what the source material has to say.
So let me just ask you straight up. Should a good person always help someone who's in need? Your gut reaction, and mine too, is probably, yeah, of course, right? I mean, that feels like the foundation of faith, of just being a decent human being. We're taught to always say yes.
But this is where the source material we're looking at just flips the script entirely. It makes the case that when you really look closely at the Bible, God doesn't actually approve of all types of help. In fact, it argues that helping certain people isn't just a bad idea, it's actually a form of disobedience. So who are these 5 people? Let's find out.
Okay, first up, we have the archetype that the source calls the manipulator. Now, this isn't just someone who's having a hard time. No, this is the person who uses deception, who uses emotional blackmail to get what they want from you.
And according to the source, that one word right there is key: abomination. I mean, just think about that word for a second. It's incredibly powerful. It suggests that God doesn't look at manipulation with pity. He sees it with disgust. This isn't just some character flaw. It's presented as a serious offense.
So how can you spot this? Well, the signs are usually pretty clear. They only seem to remember you exist when they need a favor. They'll use your faith against you, saying things like, well, if you were a real Christian, and they make you feel terrible for trying to set a boundary. And here's the point the source really hammers home. When you give in, you're not actually helping them. You're just bankrolling their sin and letting them tighten their grip on you. The most biblical response, it argues, is to simply stop playing their game.
All right, let's move on to the second type, the person the source refers to as the lazy. And let's be super clear here. This isn't talking about someone who's lost their job or is struggling. This is about a very specific mindset.
This verse is really the cornerstone of this whole argument, and wow, is it direct. If any would not work, neither should he eat. Did you catch that? The source argues that those 2 little words, would not, are everything.
And that is the absolute core of the distinction. Would not work is a choice. It's a refusal to even try. Could not work is a circumstance. That's someone who's sick or disabled or just can't find an opportunity. This argument is aimed right at the person who is perfectly capable but just won't. You can see how this creates a really toxic cycle, right? They have a problem, you swoop in and fix it, and you feel good. But then they're back again and again. You haven't actually solved their problem. You've just made their dependency comfortable. The rationale here is that by constantly bailing them out, you might actually be getting in the way of the very consequence God is trying to use to get their attention.
Now for number 3, and this one, according to the source, might be one of the most draining of all, the repeat fool. And what makes this one so tough is that this person really seems like they want help.
The biblical imagery here, it's just raw. It's intentionally visceral and disgusting because it's trying to show you just how repulsive and self-destructive this pattern is. The repeat fool listens, they nod, they might even cry and promise to change, and then they turn around and do the exact same thing again. And this gets right to the heart of it. The source argues that this person doesn't actually want to be delivered from their problem, they just want anesthesia. They want temporary relief from the pain their choices cause. So you don't become a helper, you just become a pit stop for them to recover before they go right back out and do it all over again.
You've seen this pattern. They listen, they agree with everything you say, they make these big emotional promises, and then boom, they're right back where they started. And the source gives a really stark warning here. You stop being a helper and you become a lifeguard for someone who secretly enjoys drowning. Your energy, your compassion, your time, it's all being wasted on someone who, deep down, doesn't actually want to be saved.
All right, let's look at the final 2 archetypes together, because they both have one thing in common: a deep, deep resistance, either resistance to advice or resistance to peace itself.
First, we have the proud. Their whole thing is this. They want you to fix their life, but they want you to do it on their terms. They want the solution, but without ever having to admit that they were the problem in the first place.
And man, this cycle is frustrating. They come to you for help, but then they argue with every single thing you suggest. They just can't bring themselves to admit they were wrong. And the source points to James 4:6, which says God himself resists the proud. And the thinking here is pretty profound. If God himself is actively pushing back against their pride, who are you to try and get in his way?
And finally, we have the quarrelsome person. This isn't someone who's standing up for what's right. No, this is someone who is a drama factory. They cause fights at work, with their family, and their friend group. They create chaos everywhere because what they really want is the attention that conflict brings.
This proverb really says it all, doesn't it? The source uses this to show how useless it is to keep helping. I mean, if you put out the fire they started today, you better get ready because they're just going to light another one tomorrow. By constantly cleaning up their messes, you're not making peace, you're just becoming their accomplice in the chaos. So, after going through all 5 of those types, where does that leave us? Let's try to piece together what true biblical help might actually look like according to this perspective. So let's do a quick recap. We've got the manipulator, who uses guilt, the lazy, who chooses not to try, the repeat fool, who loves the cycle of crisis and rescue, the proud, who refuses to be wrong, and the quarrelsome, who lives for the drama.
And of course, this is the question that's been hanging in the air this whole time. It feels so wrong to walk away from someone who's hurting, doesn't it? It feels unchristian. It feels cruel. So is it a sin to stop helping these people?
And this right here is the source's final, most critical point. It says that biblical love is about carrying one another's burdens, the heavy things in life that people truly cannot carry on their own. But it is not about carrying their irresponsibility. Helping someone who genuinely wants to change is love, but protecting someone from the consequences of their own bad choices, well, according to this interpretation, that isn't love. That's disobedience.
So we're left with this really tough, really personal question to think about. Looking at your own life, based on what we've talked about, where is that line for you? The line between truly helping someone and simply enabling them. There's no easy answer, but it is a vital question to ask. Thanks for digging into this with us.